What if I told you that some of the most unforgettable WWE characters weren't built around being unstoppable monsters or larger-than-life superheroes, but around jobs you'd normally see on an ordinary street? From tax collectors who made your skin crawl to garbage men dragging trash cans to the ring, this video is going to give you exactly what you came for. Every strange, fascinating, and surprisingly memorable occupational gimmick that somehow carved out a place in wrestling history. And trust me, some of these worked way better than they ever should have, while others crashed in ways you won't believe. So let's dive right into it. In the world of wrestling, some characters stick with you not because of championship reigns or five-star matches, but because of how unique, bizarre, or oddly creative their gimmicks were. And among those, occupational gimmicks stand in a category of their own. These were characters built around everyday professions, twisted, exaggerated, and dropped right into the chaos of professional wrestling. Sometimes they connected in ways no one expected, and other times they failed so badly that they became unforgettable for completely different reasons. Starting things off, there's TL Hopper, and honestly, this is one of those situations where you almost feel bad for the guy playing the role because the concept itself was already fighting an uphill battle. A plumber gimmick isn't necessarily doomed on paper. In fact, if presented as a grounded, hardworking, relatable blue-collar figure, it might have actually worked. But instead of taking that route, WWE leaned all the way into absurdity. What fans got was not a believable working-class character, but something exaggerated to the point of parody. TL Hopper showed up wearing a grimy tank top, loose jeans, and carrying a plunger like it was some kind of weapon or badge of honor. The idea was that he was there to clean out WWE, unclogging all the problems in the company. It sounds strange, and the execution didn't help. It turned the character into more of a joke than anything fans could invest in. Because of that, Hopper never really had a chance to gain momentum. Aside from a rare memorable moment like the home improvement match, his run never found solid ground. No major storyline, no meaningful push, just a gimmick that faded as quickly as it appeared. Eventually, he disappeared and later resurfaced as Uncle Cletus, with WWE quietly moving on like the plumber phase never happened at all. Then you have someone like Big Boss Man, who represents the complete opposite outcome. This is what happens when the right performer meets the right gimmick at the right time. Debuting as a prison guard, Big Boss Man immediately stood out. He wasn't just another wrestler, he carried authority, intensity, and a presence that made him feel legitimate. Armed with his nightstick and a no-nonsense attitude, he came across as someone who had stepped straight out of a real correctional facility and into the ring. Initially positioned as a villain, he aligned with Akeem as part of the Twin Towers and found himself going up against top-tier names. But what made his journey interesting was how naturally he transitioned over time. Fans began to appreciate his style, his energy, and his uniqueness, leading to a babyface turn that worked surprisingly well. From there, he became part of memorable feuds, including his clashes with Mr. Perfect and especially his intense rivalry with Nails. What truly set him apart, though, was his ability to evolve. When he returned during the Attitude Era, the gimmick was reimagined into something darker, colder, and far more ruthless. Gone were the cartoonish edges, replaced by a version that fit perfectly into a more aggressive and edgy WWE landscape. As part of Vince McMahon's corporation, he became an enforcer involved in chaotic, controversial storylines. Some of those moments were wild, some went too far, but they made him impossible to ignore. That longevity and adaptability are exactly why Big Boss Man stands as one of the most successful occupational gimmicks ever. Moving on, Erwin R. Schister, better known as IRS, took something as mundane and universally unliked as taxes and turned it into a character that fans love to hate. In a world filled with colorful heroes and villains, IRS stood out by being deliberately irritating. He wasn't flashy or intimidating in the traditional sense, but he didn't need to be. His entire presence was built around making people uncomfortable. From his smug lectures about financial responsibility to his condescending attitude, IRS felt like the embodiment of every frustrating tax experience rolled into one person. He made his debut in 1991 and quickly established himself as a heel who could get under anyone's skin. Feuds with names like Bret Hart and Big Boss Man helped cement his place, but things truly clicked when he teamed up with Ted DiBiase. Together, they formed Money Incorporated, a pairing that made perfect sense. One man obsessed with wealth, the other obsessed with control through taxation. It was a combination that worked instantly. Their chemistry led to multiple tag team title reigns and high-profile matches, including a major WrestleMania appearance. Even after DiBiase's ring-in retirement, IRS continued to stay relevant, appearing in notable matches and maintaining his presence before eventually moving on. Over time, the character became a nostalgic favorite, and Mike Rotunda's contributions extended beyond the ring as he later guided future stars, including his son Bray Wyatt. Then you have Duke the Dumpster, a character that perfectly represents WWE's willingness in the mid-90s to push occupational gimmicks to their absolute limit. A garbage man who brought a trash can to the ring and wrestled in his work uniform, it was as literal as it sounds. While the idea had a certain novelty, it also made it hard for fans to take seriously. Despite that, Drews had moments that stood out. His feud with Jerry Lawler included a segment where he was hit with his own trash can, a moment that felt shockingly intense for its time and hinted at the hardcore direction WWE would later embrace. Still, those moments weren't enough to carry the gimmick long-term. As WWE began shifting away from overly cartoonish characters, the Dumpster quietly disappeared, leaving behind a strange but memorable legacy. Repo Man is another example of a gimmick that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did in its own weird way. The concept of a repossession agent as a wrestler sounds almost impossible to pull off, but Barry Darsow leaned into it completely. Instead of trying to make the character cool or intimidating, he embraced the absurdity. The sneaky behavior, the odd laugh, the masked appearance, it all came together to create something that felt bizarre but oddly entertaining. He wasn't a dominant force or a top star, but that wasn't the point. Repo Man became memorable because of how different he was. He captured that early 90s energy where wrestling wasn't afraid to be strange, exaggerated, and a little ridiculous. Then comes Reverend Devon, a drastic shift from what fans were used to seeing. As part of the Dudley Boys, Devon was known for chaos, tables, and intensity, but when WWE split the team during the draft, he was repackaged into something completely different, a preacher-like figure who lectured the audience. It was a bold move, but it stripped away much of what made him appealing in the first place. Instead of being part of a destructive tag team, he became more about sermons than action. The gimmick didn't fully connect, but it did have one lasting impact. It introduced Batista to WWE audiences as his deacon. While Devon eventually returned to the Dudley Boys, this phase remains an interesting, if flawed, experiment. The Mountie brought a different flavor to occupational gimmicks, blending national identity with authority. As a Canadian police officer, he stood out immediately. His arrogance, smugness, and willingness to cheat made him an effective villain in the United States, while in Canada he was often cheered as a hometown figure. That duality made the character unique. His feud with Big Boss Man, culminating in a jailhouse stipulation match, became one of his most memorable moments. And despite being seen as a gimmick-driven character, he even captured the Intercontinental Championship, proving there was more to him than just the persona.
Friar Ferguson, on the other hand, is an example of how far things could go wrong. A wrestling friar already sounded questionable, but the execution made it worse. The character felt awkward, lacked direction, and failed to resonate with audiences. It didn't help that it sparked backlash from religious groups, leading to its quick removal from television. It's a clear reminder that not every idea, no matter how creative, is meant to succeed. The Goon followed a similar path, an over-the-top hockey enforcer gimmick that never quite connected. Despite a strong backstory and effort from the performer, the character felt too specific and exaggerated. Fans didn't hate him, they just didn't care enough for it to matter. And in wrestling, that's often worse. Simon Dean brought things into a more modern context, tapping into fitness culture and turning it into a heel persona. As an arrogant fitness guru pushing his Simon system, he quickly became someone fans loved to dislike. But once he ran into Bobby Lashley, the illusion fell apart. A humiliating defeat exposed the gimmick's limits, and it never fully recovered. Brutus the Barber Beefcake shows how an occupational gimmick can truly thrive when every detail is committed to. From the scissors to the barbershop segments to cutting opponents' hair, everything about the character reinforced the concept. He was flashy, entertaining, and perfectly suited for its era, making it one of the most iconic examples. David Otunga offered a rare case where the gimmick was rooted in real life. As a Harvard-educated lawyer, his role as a legal advisor felt authentic. It gave him a unique edge, especially during storylines involving authority figures. While his in-ring career didn't reach the highest levels, the concept itself stood out. Finally, Firebreaker Chip represents a quieter kind of success. As a firefighter, the gimmick wasn't flashy or outrageous, but it worked well enough in a tag team setting. He didn't become a top star, but he didn't need to. Sometimes having a clear identity and a solid role is enough to leave a lasting impression. And that's the fascinating thing about occupational gimmicks in wrestling. They exist in this strange space where reality meets exaggeration. Some fail instantly, some evolve into something great, and others linger in memory simply because they were so different. But all of them, in their own way, contributed to the colorful, unpredictable world that makes wrestling what it is.